I still remember the first time I ever saw her, and I asked an honest question. What in the world is this woman wearing? That was over 2 decades ago. And through those 2 decades, I've had a lot of experiences with Ada Wong. And while the games may have changed, the faces may have changed, throughout those 2 decades of being in the Resident Evil fandom and community, Ada Wong has still remained my all-time and probably forever favorite Resident Evil character. But there's one thing that's always eluded me personally that I've always wanted to see with Ada, despite her being in numerous Resident Evil games in different forms of media. And that would be us Ada fans' ultimate wet dream, having a Resident Evil game where Ada Wong being the main character. Now, in order to do this, there's certain things and criteria you're going to have to serve, certain purposes, certain things you have to do. But make no mistake, there might be a thing on here on this list that might trigger a few people, if you can kind of catch my drift. So, hopefully you won't get too mad at me, but from a diehard Ada fan, it's something that you have to do this game any justice.
Women.
What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some more Resident Evil content for you. And I apologize about my voice. I've kind of lost it the last few days, so hopefully it holds up for the course of this video. But it's kind of my New Year's Eve tradition now. My third year in a row doing this, where the last day of the year I post a video that I kind of put a little bit more time and thought into. 2 years ago I did the whole why does Capcom seem to hate Jill and Claire. Last year I did the whole how Resident Evil should mentally and psychologically break their main 5 characters. And this year I talk about how my favorite Resident Evil character, Ada Wong, how I would design her own solo game. Now, first thing I want to sit here and I want to mention this right from the get-go before I get to my criteria, what you got to do for this. I know there's a little bit of a crowd out there saying, oh, well, Ada can't get her own game because she's not interesting enough to get her own game. Bollocks. Guys, listen, if we've had Resident Evil games, regardless if they're main games, spin-off games, or whatever, where you've had people like Ark Thompson be the main character in them, yeah, I think anybody can be a main character in a Resident Evil game. So, and trust me, there's a lot you can do with Ada Wong. And after the whole Separate Ways DLC last year, I think there's a lot of potential you can do, a lot of successful things with Ada Wong. But, now that I got that out of the way, now I can continue on with the criteria, because I got 5 main things I think you have to do in order to do this right. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first thing you need to do is turn this story to an espionage, spy / agent thriller type adventure. This is not going to be your typical, you're working for the BSAA trying to fight bioterrorism, or you're working for some evil corporation and you're trying to take over the world. You're Ada Wong. You're someone who plays the sides for fools, uses the sides to get information, manipulate people to get in the reaction you want to. I've always said this about Ada Wong. She would definitely be the equivalent of like the Black Widow from the Marvel Universe. She's a character that knows how to play people's emotions, play the sides, get information, get in and get out, and look like $1,000,000. And to me, I've always considered Ada Wong being like that spy agent character, obviously, like a Black Widow or a James Bond, or someone just going undercover, regardless of what they do, what they have to do, basically doing it by yourself, using the people involved in their mission, whether they're allies, temporary allies, or someone just playing for dummies. It's why I've always enjoyed Ada's perspective on things, is once again, it's not so black and white. There's a lot of gray involved, and it depends on the situation. So it always makes her situation so interesting and unique to me personally, because you never 100% know how it's going to go. There's going to be a lot of X factors, there's going to be a lot of loopholes and things that go wrong, things you have to change on the fly, or what they call it, wing it. And to me, no other character is more equipped to doing it than Ada Wong, for all the people she's worked alongside, all the corporations she's worked alongside, which I will mention later on really soon. But it goes to reason this is not your typical Resident Evil adventure, and that's one reason why I think in order to do an Ada Wong game justice and right, you have to show that off. And who knows, maybe we even have the possibility of showcase people who've actually worked alongside Ada that we've never seen as Resident Evil fans, but since it's her own game, people that Ada knows, that Ada associates with, that are kind of like unique to her, and her having her own game could show this off and stuff. Because, you know, hey, James Bond wasn't 100% doing his stuff by himself, and neither was Black Widow. You know, you have people, rackets, you know, associates you talk to, so maybe they can show that off in a spy through an espionage adventure. So that is my number one criteria that you have to have. But now we're going to move on to the second criteria that you have to do this game right. And that is what I mentioned earlier, Ada's connections, as well as the connections she's worked for, or the third party, or whatever you want to call them at this point in time as the Resident Evil history goes on and on. Ada Wong has worked with a lot of people, a lot of different factions and corporations. I mean, honestly, if I was kind of hiring Ada, I probably wouldn't hire if I knew her personally, because it's just like, man, you jump team all over the place. But all joking aside, I want to see more, and I think us fans want to see more of the connections. You've always had a suspicion of who are these people, like what do they really do? Is it multiple people? We've had so many theories about where they come from, how long have they really been there? Does Ada truly work for them, or just use them from means to end? Is there really that one group that Ada ultimately trusts, or is she in it for himself? I kind of always have that whole, I guess this is just me personally, I kind of see it kind of like how the old school Spectre was in the old James Bond movies, where you just have, you know, your number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, rank type people, and you slowly see more and more, but the number one's faces cover up into the very end where you finally see them, and aka like a Blofeld. But once again, that's just me personally vibing over old James Bond movies, but you get my drift. I just like to see the whole makeup, it's this whole entity, just how it works, how Ada works alongside of them. Like, did Ada meet them at a young age, or did they find her at a young age, or whatever? I think a lot of us just really want to see this whole criminal underground in plain sight. I'm not saying you have to necessarily reveal every single solitary thing about them, but just a little bit, just so we can know how it works out, because we've always kind of had that in the back of our mind, like, yeah, this is the group that's been behind a lot of the events in Resident Evil, but we just hear them in name, and it's always, oh, they're off screen, they're off screen, they're off screen. And how many times can you be off screen? You know, you got to show yourself eventually, and I feel like no better time than having an Ada Wong solo game, someone who has worked alongside many of these shady criminal type people, and Ada having a front row seat to a lot of this stuff would just be the perfect opportunity. I think we all can agree with that. So hopefully, if you are going to do an Ada Wong game, you showcase all these connections, as well as, you know, Ada's personal feelings with all these connections, with seeing different people that she's worked alongside, maybe ultimately betrayed, maybe possibly didn't feel like they were necessarily bad, but just had to use them for her own advantage. But it'd be the perfect thing to show off for an Ada Wong solo game. But that is criteria number 2 that you have to do. Now we move on to criteria number 3, which I think is a really, really important thing that this game has to do in order to do it right. And that is the whole Ada's past, as well as her motivations and goals. We still, to this day, it's amazing Ada Wong has been a Resident Evil character for, I believe, a little over a quarter century now, but we still really don't know that much about her. I mean, we don't know where she came from in a canon way, a way that's 100% proven, not theories and speculation, but we still don't know where she came from, how she got into the business of line of work that she did, why she did it find her, or did she find it? 100% where she was born, anything, family, affiliations, nothing. I mean, other than, you know, what she looks like, even though that's changed a little bit over time depending on the games. And, you know, hell, we don't even know if Ada Wong is her honestly real name, to be honest with you. So there's so much we don't know, as well as her own long-time goals itself. And I know this is a very slippery slope to travel, because a lot of people will use the argument, and I do understand this argument, that, oh, we leave it that way because if you reveal something, it's not as, you know, it's more times not what you personally want, but it kind of ruins, I guess, the myth, the mystique of the character. But here is one of those situations where it's like, okay, it's not like Ada just barely appears. She's been in a lot of mainline Resident Evil games, probably 2, 4, and 6. She's had a few appearances outside of those. So it's not like she's just some random character that barely shows up when you see her for like a minute or two and that's it. She's been in a lot of Resident Evil major games. So when you've been in there for a long time, my argument against that is you don't want to ruin the myth about it. Well, how many times can you appear before it just gets tiresome when you just do the same thing? And I'm sorry, as much as I love Ada Wong, the whole I'm here, I pop up, I do what I gotta do, and pop out, and that's it. It kind of get a little tiresome at times. And as an Ada Wong fan, I want more. I also like them to explore the whole loneliness of the character because let's just be honest, outside maybe a person, maybe two, no one really knows or honestly cares that much about Ada Wong. So it must be kind of lonely to just be that type of character doing all these things and kind of just being a one woman army, kind of by yourself, where no one really cares about what happens to you as long as you complete whatever mission and whoever you're working for. I want to know the mentality of that. Does that wear on her mind? I want to see her at kind of maybe her worst points when no one's looking. How does she really act when she's the main character of a game around maybe a bunch of people that honestly could care less? Just complete the mission and we don't really care personally what happens to you without having certain security blankets, which I'll talk about later. But yes, as well as her motivations. What's her end goal in all this? Is she simply a mercenary for money? Is it for the fame? Or is it to be in style? Because we all know Ada Wong definitely likes to go out in style. But that is my number 3 criteria you have to do. My number 4 criteria is you have to have certain characters join this game. And the first one is a no-brainer. I think he's tailor-made for an Ada Wong game. It's been a crime how he's not been in any of the major Resident Evil games for a while. And no, Mercenaries mode doesn't count. And that would be Hunk. I said earlier I look at Ada as a Black Widow. I see Hunk as a Punisher. And, Black Widow and Punisher have had an interesting dynamic in the Marvel universe before. Well, that's the way I see Ada and Hunk. Hunk is a character that I feel like is tailor-made for this game. Because remember, this is an Ada Wong game. This isn't some game where you're playing necessarily a hero. You're playing a lot of morally ambiguous, kind of bad, kind of messed up characters who are here to get the job done and not think about it. Not that you wouldn't have any good characters in it, but I feel like I want to showcase more, I guess, the underworld, the dark side. Because I think that perspective would be a lot more interesting. It's something that I don't think Resident Evil has fully ever tried to commit, and it would definitely be interesting having Hunk in there. Does he work alongside Ada? Does he not? Does he not trust her? But it's like, she's a means to an end. Our goals align for now, but I gotta watch myself, and Ada feels the same way with hers. It's kind of like, I guess, the ultimate cat and mouse game, which is going to amplify when you see the other characters I put in here. But my point still stands. Having Hunk there would just be perfect, and maybe even have a little fight, a boss fight. Maybe they have a little rivalry. Maybe they know each other, and they're kind of like, hey, we've worked alongside each other, maybe alongside or against each other before. It's kind of like a little joke or meme, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you gotta have Hunk in there. You gotta have that character, the Grim Reaper. And it's been way too long since they had Hunk, and this will be a meaningful way for him to come back in this type of adventure. What's he been up to? What's he been doing? Does he know alongside these different organizations and corporations that we've seen Ada work alongside? Just be a really good thing. And I think they can have a really good, whether team up, rivalry, or all of the above. But you definitely got to have Hunk in this equation. The next character I think you got to have, and it's one that's a little bit lesser known character, and most people kind of call them the discount Ada Wong. And I don't think they're necessarily a discount. No, they're not Ada Wong, but still having them interact with Ada and their affiliations definitely make this game really interesting. And that is Jessica. Now, Jessica is another character that kind of just had the one and done syndrome, which I've already gone through in the past. But my point still stands with Jessica and how she kind of is a spy as well, and kind of there manipulating people, betraying them. I think she's tailor-made to be perfect in this Ada Wong infested game. We saw how Jessica played her games in Revelations where she kind of fooled and betrayed people, and it wasn't to the very end that they found out. Well, Ada being an expert in that, seeing how they would have their banter, and would they fight each other, would they work alongside each other, would they do a little bit of both. As I said, that ultimate cat and mouse game, you just have these characters that are all in a room together, and no one can really trust anybody, but sometimes you're going to have a little bit of trust to get the mission done, and seeing when someone's going to do the move to betray each other. Yeah, it's going to be kind of like one of those good, bad, and ugly moments where everyone's just kind of waiting to see who's going to move first. So I can see a lot of potential from that spy espionage. Who's going to betray who? Who's the double agent? Who's the triple agent? and having Jessica, Ada, throw Hunk in the mix, yeah, you can see where this can be really, really, really entertaining. And I really want to see this. And it also goes back to earlier videos I made this year where I like to bring back characters that haven't been used in a long time. And Jessica and Hunk, I just think, are tailor-made for an Ada Wong game. But I was thinking about it for a little while, and I was saying, you know, I have two characters that are either bad, you know, morally ambiguous, whatever you want to call it. They're not on the good side, obviously. I kind of need one character on the good side, just, I guess, balance it out a little bit. And I was trying to think of who that could be for a long time, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But then I went with something I've always wanted to see as well. Because as much as I love Ada, I've always wanted to see her interact with this one character. And this is a character that has been used, except for remakes, very prominently, and that would be JillValentine. Now, a lot of people might be wondering, you know, why would I want Jill in an Ada game? It's kind of a me thing. I've always wanted to see Ada and Jill interact and meet each other. I don't know 100% why, but I feel like their interactions, especially post a, you know, Resident Evil 5 Death Island Jill, would be very entertaining because Jill's at that point in her story where she's kind of really fed up with all sorts of bioterrorism, really kind of after what happened to her being put on the shelf for basically a decade, not just figuratively and literally, you know, in the game, but also by Capcom themselves, unfortunately. I feel like I would love to see how she would interact with someone like an Ada. Would she be in a situation like, you know, tell with all these people betraying, also having her personal beef with Jessica because they were in the same adventure in Revelation, seeing how she betrayed and was a spy in the BSAA, but also seeing how she would interact with someone like a Hunk, you know, the Grim Reaper himself, as well as Ada herself. Is she someone that he's just going to open fire on and try to kill immediately because of what's happened to her in the past? Is she someone that's like, you know, I not trust in Ada, but I do respect her. I do respect where she's coming from, and I might have to rely on that, unfortunately, even though it goes against maybe a little bit of my morals. But in order to get the mission done, I do got to trust that this woman does know her information and her stuff. And who knows, maybe they come out of that mission a lot more respect with each other, as well as also the fact that does Jill even know anything about Ada? Because that's the weird thing, is if you go by the ending of Resident Evil 6, a lot of people, and we still don't even know if people, honestly, outside of Leon and Elena, know that Ada, the Ada Nat was actually Carla, and that the real Ada still lives. So we don't know everyone's, I guess, personal history with Ada, and that would be just interesting to me personally. So that's more of a me thing. As a Hunk and Jessica, you definitely had to have. I threw Jill in there personally because I just want to see, you know, how that whole interactions work and how they all come out of it at the end of this game, if they do come out of it at all, because that's definitely going to be a bloodbath there. But nonetheless, it would also give me an opportunity to answer an age-old Resident Evil question. Who does have the best booty in Resident Evil? Jill, Jessica, or Ada? I'll let you guys decide. Now, in my intro of this video, I warned you guys that one thing might trigger a few of you guys, because I know this fan base of this character, it can get a little fickle. And once again, hear me out before you get your pitchforks, alright? The most important thing you have to do, and I know this is going to be a tough, bitter pill for you guys to swallow, but you have to do it to make this game as good as it possibly can be. And that is this. No Leon S. Kennedy. You cannot, under any circumstances, have Leon S. Kennedy in his Ada Wong solo game. Leon S. Kennedy is banned from being in this game under any circumstances.
No thanks, bro.
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
No, I am not kidding. And yes, bro, you are not in this game, Leon. Now, before you get your pitchforks, if you've been following this channel, you probably know where I'm going with this. If you are new to this channel, I just want to say this right in the beginning. No, I am not some anti-Leon fan. I don't hate Leon. He is my second favorite character, only behind Ada Wong, which may confuse you even more. And no, it's not that I hate their dynamic. I love their dynamic. It's one of my favorite dynamics in Resident Evil. But here's the thing. I've always said this before. One of my notions that I hate about Ada Wong is how she only can appear in a Leon adventure. When clearly that's not the case, because we've seen Leon do adventures without Ada Wong, maybe more in the CGI movies, but we have seen them. So it comes to the reason, why can't Ada Wong have her own adventure without Leon? But also, it's not the fact of that. It's just also this. I've always considered Leon to be Ada's ultimate security blanket. And what I mean by that is not that, oh, he's just there to protect her or help her out. What I mean by that is, when Leon is involved, we all know how Ada is going to act, how she's going to use Leon, how she's going to interact and mess with them, flirt with them, whatever they want to do. We all know what's going to happen before it even happens. But what happens when you don't have Leon in the equation? You have Ada in an adventure with no Leon. It changes the whole dynamic and perspective so much. Because Ada, let's just be honest, as I mentioned earlier, how many people outside of Leon really know anything or even care at all about Ada at all? And it's a short list. Honestly, I think the only person I can think of off the top of my head is maybe Helena. And that's it. Because most people don't even know Ada, have barely interacted with her, or think she's dead. So no one would care about it. So if you put Ada in an adventure where you have a bunch of random people that we've never really on screen seen interact, who could care less about her, that has an ample chance to explore, as I said earlier, that loneliness. And if you involve Leon, you completely ruin that, because we know Ada's going to lean on Leon. But when you don't have Leon, it puts Ada in a very unique position, spot. How is Ada going to proceed to do her mission without having that ultimate security blanket to lean on? Is she more aggressive? Is she more mean? Is she more docile? Like, does it weigh on her? Does it weigh on her knowing that, hey, it's all on me and no one's going to be here to help me if I mess this all up? I don't have that Leon blanket, the security blanket to lean on, and I just ultimately would like to see that. And guys, it's not the fact that I don't want to see a reconciliation between Leon and Ada, because I do. But that has to come later. We have to have this, an Ada solo adventure where you really fully learn about the woman herself while having Leon kind of get in the way. But hopefully I made that point clear. It's not me being some anti-Leon fan. Quite the contrary. As I said, I want to see these two have a reconciliation, and whatever comes out of it, comes out of it. But you have to give me this first. Because if you don't give me this first, it's going to make the reconciliation look kind of weak and lackluster in the end, because I'll still be asking, I still don't know the character Ada herself, the woman herself. So I want an adventure with Ada being the prime candidate, not someone else that's going to be in there that's kind of going to take a lot of the luster away. I want to learn about the woman herself without having anything kind of get in the way of that, if that makes sense to you. But one day I do want to see Ada and Leon kind of, I guess, give a conclusion to their whole adventures and what they've been doing for the past 2+ decades. But there it is, my 5 criteria of what I personally want from AdaWong game. There's other things I could have put on here that didn't quite make the list, and I'd be very interested to hear your guys' opinion on what you would personally like to see if Ada Wong had to have her own game. Because for me personally, I think the number one reason, other than being a dire fan of Ada, is just the whole perspective of it. Ada has a very unique perspective on things. It's not the Chris, Leon, Jill, Claire perspective where they're going to be doing everything for the good of people, working for companies that might not be the best companies in the world, but they're going to be all overly heroic. Or they're not quite the perspective of Wesker or Alex Wesker or Birkin, where they're just pure evil. Ada has that kind of middle ground where she dances between both of them and somehow comes out looking and feeling like $1,000,000. So I ultimately want to see this game explore that, explore how she is personally. Does this weigh on her? We always see Ada as a cool character, but she's only human. What does she do off screen or when she's to herself? Does she show moments of weakness? Does this weigh on her mind? Does this mentally break her? And in showing moments like this, I think that'll make her be even cooler, more badass than she already is. But as I always like to say, that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. How would you do an Ada Wong game? What characters would be in it? And would you include Leon? Did that trigger some people, unfortunately? But that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Hopefully I can see you guys. It's been a great 2024. Hopefully 2025 can be even better. But I'll see you guys next year. Peace.